Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. So I'm getting set up here so to get started on our information and Q&A session. So go ahead, come on in and join me. All right. Hi there on Instagram. Hi there on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I'm here to answer your U.S. immigration related question. So here's how it's going to work. You can ask any immigration related questions. It does not have to be related to the topic that I'm talking about today. You can go ahead and put your questions in the comments now. And then as soon as I'm finished just discussing the topic that I came to talk about, I'm going to hop right on and address your questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the comments right now so that as soon as I see them, I can answer them. So today I'm talking about getting the work permit and the travel document through the VAWA adjustment of status process. So when you're applying for VAWA, in most instances, you're also able to apply for your green card at the same time. Now, when you're applying for the green card, when you're filing for the adjustment of status application, you go ahead and you apply for the work permit and the travel document. When those are granted to you, it's granted to you while the process is pending. So it means that you're able to find some reassurance, some stability while you wait for your process to be completed. Now, the VAWA, this is the same with the marriage-based process. It's same with the adjustment of status process through employment. So you don't necessarily have to wait until the VAWA is approved to get your travel document and your work permit. Right now, I'm seeing the processing times are ranging anywhere from 6 months to up to 11 to 12 months to get the work permit and the travel document. In some cases, right now, they're trying to rush the work permit through faster because a lot of people would rather have the work permit because they're here, they want to work, they want to move on, they want to get their social security number. And so to make things faster, they're doing what's called decoupling of the EAD, the work permit. It's called EAD because it's employment authorization document. And they're decoupling the EAD, so the work permit and the travel document, because what happens usually is they both come on one card. So you get a card, similar, it looks very similar to the green card. And that card is going to, at the bottom, it's going to indicate that it's also a travel document. It also serves as a travel document. That's most common. But lately, we have been seeing where they're trying to rush through to get the work permits out and then they send the travel document later on. And most people prefer that just because they want to get started, but it just depends on what's going on. If you do need to travel, in that case, you may have to wait a little longer for the travel document. But on average, I'm seeing 6 months to 12 months. So yes, a wide range of time to see the work permits come through. Now, when you file the petition, you file the VAWA petition, the adjustment of status application, the work permit, and the travel document. What usually happens is that they're processing all of those at the same time. So one may not necessarily affect the other. So, for example, if you get a request for evidence for VAWA, it may not necessarily mean that you're going to not get your work permit because that is being processed with the adjustment of status. In some cases, you may get a VAWA biometrics, and then later on, you get another biometrics for the adjustment of status application. So that is also an indication that these applications are being processed together but separately. What does happen though is you will not get the green card, of course, until they know that you have been approved for VAWA, because this is a multiple step process. And that's where it's great to get the work permit and the travel document while your process is going through, because The getting the green card is going to be ultimately dependent on that decision in the VAWA. Once your VAWA is approved, you don't even, if you applied for everything all together, you applied for the work permit, the travel document together, along with the petition and the adjustment of status. What happens is, as soon as you get approved for VAWA, you get another work permit. And that's if, of course, you're placed in deferred action, you get another work permit that indicates now it's based on your VAWA status. So you get that work permit, and that's great because it can serve as an extension, another 2 years. Then what automatically you move on to the green card process. So I would say the longest leg of this right now is about 2 years to get a decision on VAWA, but then it starts to move pretty quickly once you get the approval for the VAWA. So then you look at another 6 months, so another 6 or a little over 6 months time, you'll be getting the green card. So they may schedule an interview, they may not, but at that point you'd move on to the green card process. So it is a multi-tiered process, but it is also your process, meaning that your relative who's mistreating you, because that's the purpose of this, is it helps people who are being mistreated by their citizen or resident spouse, their parent, if you're under 21, under 25 in some cases, or your citizen son or daughter who's age 21 and up. If you are in a situation where these individuals are mistreating you, then you will be able to apply for this process, apply for your VAWA at a minimum in most cases, especially when it comes down to being the son or daughter of a citizen or resident, or it comes on to being the spouse of a parent, the spouse of a citizen or resident. You can right now apply for adjustment of status at the same time that you're applying for a VAWA. And also being the parent of a citizen who's 21 and up, you can apply for all of that at one time right now. And so it serves as a convenient process where you're protected. One additional benefit of this, especially when you're in a particularly volatile relationship, whether it's a parent-child relationship or it's a spouse relationship, is that you're protected. When you file this application, it means that they're going to look at the evidence before them and they're not going to use the evidence presented. So say the spouse or the parent or the adult child calls to try to sabotage you, or they try to tell the immigration service something. Once your VAWA petition is in, they cannot use that information against you in the VAWA process, and they cannot disclose any of your information. It is very confidential. It's not going to go outside of the agency, and it's actually against the law for them to disclose it. So they're not going to go ahead and notify law enforcement. They're not going to work with law enforcement to make sure that your relative is investigated. This is for your protection, and so they're only looking at whether you qualify for this benefit, for this form of relief, based on what you're going through, and it's based on credible evidence. So we work with our clients to get that evidence put together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and answer questions. So just know that you do get the work permit and the travel document in most cases when you apply for VAWA. If you say you are in the process, that's another thing. Say you're currently in the process with your spouse, your parent, or your adult child, and they're really putting you through the ringer. They're mistreating you, they're abusing you, and they're doing this in different ways. It could be verbal, could be mental, could be financial, could be even be physical. But keep in mind, physical abuse is not required to apply for this. Now, if you're going through this and you're going through the immigration process with them every day or every other day, or one time is just too often, they start to say things like, I'm going to go ahead and cancel your green card. Or I'm going to call immigration on you if you don't do this or that. Or I'm not going to let you get the green card. Or I'm not going to show up to the interview. If you start to experience these types of situations where they're literally, um, they're blackmailing you using your immigration process, then at that point you can change. You're in the middle of the process, you can change over to your own process. There is a way to do that. And this is my advice, just based on my gut, is when you start to see these red flags, start to explore your options to protect yourself. Because when somebody starts to float things like, oh, I don't think I'm going to show up to that interview, or I think I'm going to write immigration and tell them that this is all fraudulent, or I'm going to write immigration and cancel that petition I filed on your behalf, take them seriously. Because I have seen where individuals they have done this, and it complicates their process 10 times over. They get a scary letter, usually telling them that their petition and their application for adjustment of status have been denied, and they have 33 days to get out of the country. And that becomes very scary for my clients. At that point, we're able to fix it for our clients still, but it's very unnerving, very stressful when they're now in a situation where we have to rush to file the VAWA petition to make sure that they are protected, right? That they become protected in the process. So if you start to see these red flags from early on, and they start to tell you they're going to do this, they're going to do that, take them seriously, because they will do it, and sometimes they do sabotage you. When you're in an unprotected situation, they can sabotage you to the point where you may not be able to fix your situation, right? So if you're in this situation, go ahead and schedule a consultation, and we'll talk so that we can get started with your process. We just want to make sure you qualify first. But this has been a lifesaver for many individuals. So if you don't have status, if you overstayed, even if you cross the border without permission, even if you yourself have some issues in your own background, even in some cases where you are subject to the permanent bar, you can qualify for this VAWA, to get this, at least the VAWA status, to be able to get protection to stay in the United States. So this is a type of relief that it does make such a big change to people's lives and the way they live here. You don't have to put up with mistreatment. You can move on with your life and be independent here and take control of your situation. So I'm looking forward to getting calls from anybody who's going through this so we can help you right away, because that is the goal here. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to answer questions. So can I travel to America without being vaccinated? So the last rule that I did review on this, you had to have vaccinations. Now there are certain exceptions for children under a certain age, but most individuals do have to show evidence of the vaccination. Uh, How long is the EAD and AOS? How long is the process? So when it comes on to the VAWA process, the work permit, you're looking at anywhere from 6 months after filing to a year to get that work permit. And then the adjustment of status process from beginning to end can take 2 to 2.5 years to be completed. But the work permit is a 2-year work permit right now. So it does give you that, it just gives you that reassurance to know that you can be able to work and renew your work permit throughout the entire process. Now, keep in mind that's regarding VAWA. But there are different types of adjustment of status processes. Is it based on employment? Is it based on marriage? With those, you're going to see a different timeline for the work permit. So for the work permits, I've seen anywhere from 3. So my shortest has been 2 weeks to get the work permit. But On average, I see 3 to 6 months for the family-based work permits to come through, and then it takes anywhere from 5 months to a little over a year for the adjustment of status process to be completed, to either get the green card in the mail or to be scheduled for an interview and get the green card afterwards. I'm waiting 9 months on the work permit, AOS through marriage. So go ahead and check. It's really dependent also on the service center and what their processing times are. If you are the 9 months is beyond the processing time, you can always go ahead and submit a case inquiry. If you have an attorney, make sure you talk to an attorney. If you don't, while I'm not your attorney, I can't give you advice. I don't know what your situation is. Go ahead and call the USCIS to do a case inquiry at a minimum. But this is what we do for our clients when they're our clients. If they're beyond the case processing times, we do use we do have tools available for our current clients to nudge the USCIS into taking action and possibly moving their case forward. And one of those would be case inquiry if it's gone over processing times. Okay, so what if you get married and your partner dies before any documents are submitted? Does this mean that you will not be granted a green card? Great question. So, the good news is that when you do have a US citizen spouse, even though I hope that's not the case for you, but if your spouse passes away and they're a US citizen, then you are able to submit the application as a widow of a US citizen. You do have a time limit of 2 years to do that, but that process is available. And if you need any assistance, you can always give us a call and we can assist you to get that done. The great benefit of this, even though it's the circumstances are tragic, is that the children can be included. The widows' children can be included who are under 21 and unmarried in this type of petition as well. But there's a time limit of 2 years. What is um, what has been asked in the VAWA green card interview? So in the VAWA, when I'm with my clients, we in the interview, we pay special attention to the types of questions because when it comes on to the VAWA green card process, they're not supposed to focus on the abuse. That has been decided. That's why you're there. You're there to get the green card because your VAWA petition was approved. So they're not supposed to ask you, try to relitigate or try to reinvestigate your abuse, right? The facts stated in your application. But what they do pay attention to is your history to determine whether you qualify in every other way. Is there anything else that's going to disqualify you from having permanent residence? They usually focus on the way you came into the country. They focus on your background. Do you have a criminal record? They focus on your immigration background. And so those are the areas that they focus on. And they're going to go along those lines. They're going to go through the application, ask you questions that are related to your qualifications and eligibility for the application, your address history, your travel history, your criminal history, your immigration history. Other questions that to some people may even be outrageous, but questions related to your human rights background. Have you ever trafficked an individual? Have you ever hurt anybody in the past? Have you ever persecuted somebody in the past? So they are supposed to focus on those types of qualifying questions. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do get into those, and that's where I do serve a purpose for my clients when I'm at the interview, is to just make sure that the questions are proper as we go through the adjustment of status interview. Um, okay, awesome. I can't wait to speak with you, Temia. and to be able to just assist you. So I'm glad we can talk through your situation. Can't wait. So getting a second prima facie letter means what? It just means that your case is still in process and it's still in the same status where they're not necessarily, they still think you qualify based on the information that they've already reviewed, but they are going to do a more detailed review. So in the meantime, they're giving the prima facie letter for you to seek benefits or to seek assistance in the state that you're living in. That's the primary purpose of the prima facie letter, even though that letter may not mean a lot in some states. For example, in Florida, it doesn't really mean a lot, unfortunately. But in New York, in others, Washington, in California, that can mean the difference between you getting good assistance to stabilize you, to get food assistance or housing. But it's the type of assistance you receive is going to depend on the state. All right. All right. Hi there, Ubaned. Ubaned. It's nice to see you, and Andy. What does it mean if you get a travel document before work permit and social with VAWA? So yes, so that's happening now where they are giving the travel document. They just happen to process a travel document faster than the work permit. Sometimes they decouple it, but it doesn't necessarily mean, much. Just it's not a negative, it's not a positive. It just means that you got that benefit because they decoupled the two of them. If I submit VAWA case expedite request to Vermont hotline email, do they send me back expedite request receipt number or follow my request status? So usually now, keep in mind, based on my experience, that email is usually reserved for attorneys. Otherwise, if you're not represented by an attorney, you have to communicate with them by mail, which can be a real pain. It's really helpful to communicate with them via the email, but that email is usually reserved for the attorney. Now, they do usually respond via email, and sometimes if they don't respond, you will just see the result of your request. Sometimes they don't respond, they just do. Um, I married a US citizen. I have a VAWA case. My asylum case judge is dismissed. Can I travel my travel document to travel home country safe? So you have to be careful with that. I don't know why your asylum case was dismissed, but it doesn't change the fact that you did submit an asylum application. And if you're trying to go back to the country that you said you could not return to, um, then there is a question about whether that asylum application was frivolous. And when you have a frivolous asylum application, it means a permanent bar. So, you have to be very, very careful about that. I had VAWA case and adjust status. I sent expedite request based on health situation. So this request will be for VAWA applications or just work permit. Thank you. So you do have to ask for the specific expedite. So if you're asking for your case to be moved faster, you do have to specify, do you want this for the work permit? Do you want this for the actual benefit like the green card or VAWA? So it depends on why you submitted the expedite request, but did you submit it for VAWA? Did you submit it for your work permit? They're not necessarily going to give you something that you don't ask for. So it just depends on what your request said. Uh, how long USCIS takes to send back a rejected package due to card declining for payment. So I've seen anywhere from a week to 2 weeks if they reject an application and send it back. I was told not to travel on my travel permit because I might not be able to re-enter. Is that true? So it could very well be true. If you were told that by your attorney, heed your attorney's warning. They're usually more knowledgeable and experienced with this. And so they're telling you about a real risk involved. So heed your attorney's warning. Where I usually advise, I do this on a case by case basis for my clients, because if my clients have a more complex background, say they had a deportation order, or say they had a serious immigration violation in the background, then in their background, then I would be less inclined to tell them to go ahead and travel freely on that travel document, because you just never know what the officer at the airport or the border is going to do based on that information. And it's much easier to fight from inside of the country, to fight at the border, or to fight outside of the country. So it's on a case by case basis. At the same time, I do have many clients who travel on their travel document and they are fine. Of course, when you travel, though, you also have to make sure that you have the documents to travel to the country that you want to go to. For example, my some of my clients, they may want to travel to not their home country, but travel to another country. They have to make sure that in addition to being able to re-enter the United States, that they have the documents to enter the country that they're going to, because the travel document does not serve as it doesn't serve as permission for you to travel to any country that you want to. Um, I've received my work approval letter through marriage since December, but I haven't received an SSN yet and work permit. Can I go to the Social Security office for SSN, or USCIS will send them? If you haven't received it, so sometimes you have to wait. I would say sometimes 2 to 3 weeks just to see the Social Security number come afterwards. But if it's really been a long time, or you really need it quickly, you can go separately to the Social Security office and they will help you to reapply for it. You're welcome, Ahmed. Hi there, Kessiena. It's nice to see you. Go ahead. I'm going to be here just to answer the next few questions. So try to put those last few questions in. After filing your papers, on average, how soon after filing do you get an email saying they received your document? So on average, it depends. So on the type, for VAWA, for T's, it can be weeks. It can be, I usually estimate 2 to 6 weeks. For T's, it can go up to even 2 months. For marriage based, those come pretty quickly, so you could see that within 1 to 2 weeks. Is it safe to travel by travel permit? Will I be allowed back into the country? It depends. Um, if you get public health assistance as immigrant, for example, WIC, does this hinder you from getting your green card? Not right now. Not right now. As long as you complied with the law and you did truly qualify for this, there's no kind of fraud, then you should be fine. There are only limited circumstances now where you'll be subjected to the public charge rule, and getting WIC is not one of them. How long the paperwork take after you get married? So I've seen 5 months, a little over a year. If you're an immigrant and you get public, oh, so I answered that one. Um, so do you know what year they are now on F3 category? No, I don't, but on average, they're taking 12 years. So F3 category is the married children of US citizens, and it's on average taking 12 years. All right, so that's gonna be it for me today. So please, is police clearance is the same as a fingerprint? So the police clearance letter, they may require your fingerprints when you go to get the police clearance, but it's not the same. So police clearance letters, usually that's going to have to do with your local police department or the department in your country. They usually have a central office. When now you're saying VAWA, when it comes to VAWA, some police departments release the police clearance letter without fingerprints. Some do require them. Now, for our clients, what we do is we organize appointments to get the FBI background check done. It's so much easier, no matter which state you're in. You just do the FBI background check, and that comes and it makes it a lot easier to prove good moral character based on that FBI background check. So That's how we do that. However, you can contact, if you're going to go with the police clearance letters, you have to go to each police department in your area, in your county, or your town where you lived. And usually that's in the last 3 years. On average, what timeline for green card after VAWA approval, both filed together? So you're looking at about 6 to 8 months to go on to get the green card. So I need a police clearance letter after doing fingerprints. So it depends. Now, the fingerprint is usually a part of getting the police clearance. So if you're doing the fingerprints, if you have to take your fingerprints to the police department, each has their own requirement. Usually, when we work with do the FBI background checks, our clients, we set an appointment for them to get their fingerprints done, and then they go ahead and use those fingerprints and process the background check. It's not, we don't have our clients going all over the place to get this done. It's a one-shot deal. But when you're dealing with police clearance letters, it's just going to depend on what each police department wants you to do. And if they say you have to do the fingerprints and bring it to them, then you have to do them separately. It just depends. And some police departments offer fingerprinting at the same time. Can I use the work approval letter and other documents? So the work approval letter, right now, they have an extension on work permits for over 500 days. If you're renewing your work permit, you can use the I-797 notice of action that has the extension on it to show your employer. But you can't use the approval. And in some cases, they did release the USCIS did announce that in some cases you can use the work approval letter. However, usually if it's your initial approval, you have to wait for the card to come. All right, let me see. All right, that's gonna be it for me. I will be back tomorrow, all being well, where I'll continue to take your questions. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks for your time. I know I came on a little earlier just because I do have appointments today, but we will be back. I'll be back tomorrow. Well, answer more of your questions. In the meantime, you have specific questions, you need assistance, you want to get started, go ahead and call the office or go to the link in the profile. You can schedule your own appointment at the link, or you can call the office if you need assistance, and the staff will be more than happy to answer your questions and also to get you scheduled for the appointment. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good day. Bye bye. And thank you, Besenti. Have a good day.